Hello, good afternoon from very rainy California. Well, I'm not going to call you Mr. Casey. I'm going to call you Dr. Casey. I'm sorry. Um, you already have that. Thank you for joining me on this. I've known you for. I was 17 when I think at least 21 years. You graduated 2 years ahead of me. And I said I want to
Mm-hmm.
ask you this first question. I was not gonna ask you this question while we were discussing before starting. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
where exactly in Nigeria are you from? I have not been able to place your name ever since, back then in Nigeria, no one really cared about where people were from. Everyone just related.
Like,
So where are you from?
you just relate with people. Well, I'm actually from
Oh
Benue.
wow. And your
I'm,
name
yeah, I'm
your
actually
name
from
never
Benue
gave you
State.
away. Your name. I tried. I'm serious. I said I was gonna do this. I was gonna ask you out of the bat. First question:
Yeah.
where are you from? Because
I
I
think,
thought, is it real estate? Is it? I'm like this name. This
no.
name doesn't sound.
Well, you can be forgiven. I mean, I've got people come and tell me, oh, I must be from Cameroon. People have
Cameroon,
guessed Ghana.
Ghana.
Some have guessed that I must be
You
Joe
see,
from
I was not far
Bayelsa.
from. I
Yeah.
thought you were.
So I've gotten all kinds of
Oh,
wild
okay. You
guesses.
see, so
I've gotten
I
all kinds of
I
wild
don't feel
guesses. Yeah.
bad all of a
So
sudden. I don't feel bad.
no, you shouldn't.
So let's
You
start
shouldn't.
by exploring your incredible journey. I know back then
You
you
are not
studied electrical
I'll
engineering.
give
I
not
remember
win.
vividly this
Hmm.
this vision of you and your friend Chinan, and I've connected back
Ah,
to Dr. Chinan as well because he's on name I could place.
yeah.
I knew he was from Jos. I knew he was from Plateau State. But
Yeah.
you did electrical engineering,
We
and then I
have
went through your resume, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did he switch from this to that, and then back to this, and then to that? Just give us your incredible journey, your educational your educational resume, not even your entire resume, just your educational
Mm-mm.
resume.
Just the educational
Yes,
part of it. Well, thanks very much. I mean, Said, it's great. It's great to be talking to you. It's good to rejoin with friends and have conversations like
yes,
this, in different places. It's really nice. It's really great. I'm excited really to be here. Well, like you rightly said, I mean, I studied electrical and computer
yes,
engineering as it was called in
yes,
FUT Mina at the
yep.
time. Um, of course, you'll appreciate that a lot of changes have happened. I don't think they call it electrical and computer
No, they
engineering
call it some
anymore.
very
It's all split
boring
up
name
now.
now. It was
Yeah, some
it was
different thing.
it was more posh
Anyways,
back then. It was good to be an electrical
yeah,
electronics engineer. It sounded very
yeah. So, yeah, I started, but I mean, it is what it is. So I did that. And I thought I was going to be when I was in university. Really, I thought I wanted to be a top shot
okay.
telecommunications engineer because that sounded really
Okay, that was
like
that was what was
that's
because the revolution happened.
yeah.
Everyone was yeah
Yes, exactly. Of course, if as you will recall, about that time was when we were
the
having the
GSM.
GSM
Yes,
thing,
yes, and
and
then the telcos
yeah,
were
so
recruiting.
this
Yeah,
was this the talk. So I thought, oh, telecoms looks kind of cool, and of course we had there was some, should I say, role
yeah,
models. Some people had finished ahead and ended up in big telecom
right.
companies, and they were doing very well, and they kind of looked like the kind of persons you wanted to
True,
become.
true. That's true.
Um, you know, so that's what I thought, and to layer this on, in fact, some of the first graduate degrees I applied to study were actually
Yeah, I
telecommunications
saw that
engineering,
you went to
master's
Robert
degree.
Gordon. That's
Yeah,
your to tell you I've
yeah, but,
I've read
but
your resume.
yes, yeah, but not even Robert Gordon. Robert Gordon was
Yeah.
computing, and actually applied, but didn't end up going
Oh,
for
okay,
some other
okay,
programs
okay.
that were telecoms. Yeah. So, but just to let you know that that's what I thought I was going
Right.
to pursue, you know, but it didn't happen
Okay.
that way. So I finished my electrical and computer engineering. I went to serve, I served in what is now
Right.
Yobe State. Unfortunately, no-go territory, as
Yeah.
you will know that. Yeah. So while serving, I then got a job with National Oil Company, NNPC.
Okay.
And they looked at my resume at the time, and given that I had interned with a telecoms
Yes.
outfit, a Nigerian telecoms
Okay.
company, and a few other independent electronics or telecoms
Right.
providers that deal with telecoms, they thought that I would be best placed to work in their telecoms infrastructure unit.
Oh,
So
okay.
I ended up my first job actually within the National Oil Company was maintaining and deploying their
Oh,
telecommunications
okay.
infrastructure.
Okay. Which was
Yeah. So that's actually how I started. So in a way, yes, I was going in the path that I thought I was going to be going in,
right.
right? So a lot of visa network
Right.
switches, deployment of systems,
Yeah.
you know,
The
the whole shebang.
usual
I did
end-to-end
that.
deployment and
Ensure that
management.
exactly deployment. Now, of course, at a point in time, after 2 or so years with NNPC, I went ahead to do a
Okay.
master's program. Okay. Now, of course, to deepen that journey, I picked a master's in
Okay.
computing, software technology with
Right.
network
Okay.
management. So that's the full
Yeah.
name
Of the
of
program.
program. And this was in
Right.
Robert
Okay.
Gordon. This was in Robert Gordon on a PTDF
Okay.
scholarship.
So you and
Right?
Chinan
Just
got the same. Well,
yes. Chidan
yeah.
got his years later when he was doing his
PhD. Oh, okay.
PhD.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
how that worked. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So you
Then
got the
yeah,
PTD.
yes. I got in
You did the
to do the
masters. Okay.
master's
Okay.
program. Yeah, in in computing software
Right.
technology and network management. So that's what I got it in. I came back to NNPC and I continued doing that for a
Okay.
bit. But then I observed something. I sat down and began to look at my trajectory within the National Oil
Right.
Company.
Right.
Okay. I began to evaluate myself. Who am I and where am I within this
Right.
colossal structure?
Right.
And where do I
Right.
want to
Okay.
go? And, to put it very simply, I figured that the role I was playing in NNPC, at the
Yeah.
National Oil Company, as important as it was, I came to the conclusion, in my view, that it was a fringe role.
Okay.
So NNPC is not a telecoms
Right.
company, so I was not in the heart
Right.
of the
Because
operations, right?
it's
I was
like
in a role that was supporting. So this was a role that if for example the corporation got up and wanted to
I was going to say
outsource, it could
they
easily
could
outsource
outsource
this
it
role,
and say, "Hey, we're going to give
right?
it to a contractor." You know,
Exactly.
reduce cost.
Exactly. They could easily do that because it was not core to their
Right.
function. So I began to think to myself, okay, now I need to be able to move to something that is
Right.
core to the business of
Right.
NNPC. And my first thought was petroleum
Right.
engineering. So in my mind, my plot was, okay, see if I can pivot to petroleum
Okay.
engineering. And there are a number of ways I could
Right.
have done this. Not all of them very easy to do. One of which was to seek a movement to the unit that dealt with petroleum
Right.
engineering.
Right.
But to justify
You
that
need
movement, you
you
had
have
to
to show
show
credentials. Yeah.
credentials that
You need to show.
you had, yes, you had at least done something to put
Right.
you on that
True.
path. And so I went to Herod
Ah.
to study my master's in petroleum
Ah.
engineering.
Okay. So that's where
Okay.
that came.
So that's how that came. That's where that
Okay.
came from. Now I was going to, should I say, market it, or what I was looking
Right.
to do with it was, at that time, what I also found out that what we are calling artificial intelligence,
Right.
data analytics, big data. Now, at that time, it had also started coming to
Okay.
the fore, and there was a lot of talk in the oil industry at that time of what they call the digital oil field,
Yes.
or field of the future.
Okay. Yeah.
So essentially, it's a fancy name for saying you are putting sensors in
Okay.
the field, receiving data from the
Right.
sensors, processing it through
Yeah.
algorithms to produce or result information. You can remote control your valves, downhole,
Right.
and do all of
Right.
that great stuff. So the idea was, okay, maybe my computing knowledge or software and
Ah.
electrical engineering
Right.
background can be fused with
For
my knowledge
petroleum
of petroleum engineering to make a landmark or make a
Mm-hmm.
footfall in that area.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the thinking, for whatever it was worth, So I did that. I did that program, the petroleum engineering, and I finished it. But switching into a petroleum engineering group wasn't as straightforward as I had
Oh, okay.
envisaged from the get-go. Yeah. So, I met a number of roadblocks and
The
what have you.
typical political
And
roadblocks.
then, well, there were several. I mean, so first, the first thing was there was a freeze on
Oh,
movements, right?
that's usually the first.
And you could only, yes, and you could only do movements if you got someone really high up to
Oh,
speak for
wow.
you.
Yeah, it's political.
Yeah, so you needed to get someone. Yeah, so you needed to get someone to be able to, kind of like, should I say, you know, give you a waiver, override the HR
Right.
thing, and move. But then it wasn't really easy, and this was far and few and
Okay.
far between. Yeah. So there I was stuck, and then out of the blue, like an answered prayer, came an internal advert for. They were looking for commercial analysts.
Oh, okay.
Now I had never heard the term commercial analyst before this time. I had never heard the term before, but they were looking for commercial analysts. So apparently, the corporation was in need of people who had analytical skills, and they would slam on them business and commercial acumen.
Okay.
So I said, okay, maybe this is what I should do, right? I had analytical skills. I had a background in engineering. Of course, I could play with numbers. I could do all of that good stuff. And I said, okay, fine, why not? I mean, let's go for it. It was a very hotly contested position. Several who applied, but only 3 or 4 were chosen. Yeah, it was really keenly contested. Yeah.
A lot of people probably wanted to switch. A lot of people wanted to switch.
Yeah, people wanted to move, because again, you have to remember the context. There was a freeze on movement, so people were not moving around. So any opportunity to move would be taken. So hotly contested, applied for it, got it, and then switched into this commercial analyst role. Now, commercial analysis, it turned out that my skills acquired in petroleum engineering were very useful, because now I understood a lot about actually how oil is developed, the thinking that goes into that whole process, and then combine it on, tack it onto, by analytic skills, data analysis skills, and then acquired some business knowledge. And then that's what was going on. Before I knew it, I grew in that area, then switched down to petroleum economics, because commercial analysis really is a subset of petroleum economics where you are looking at. Yes. So I now said, okay, maybe I should deepen myself in this thing, right? Because this is looking like, of course, by this time, some years had passed, opportunities to pivot radically, within that ecosystem were shrinking. So, it's time to hunker down and, deepen your craft. And that's how I went to do the master's in petroleum economics. So that will make it the third master's degree I went to.
So the first one was the Robert Gordon one. The second one was the
Robert Gordon one, still the petroleum engineering one.
And then the third one,
petroleum engineering. The third one was petroleum economics.
Which was where? No, all over the place. Where did you do that? The one in Uniform?
No, this was the University of Port Harcourt. Again, that's a different story of its own. I met this professor who had just come from the US. He was advertising the course. It didn't look like the best thing since sliced bread. To be honest, he did a fairly good job of advertising it. And then I said, okay, hey, this is an opportunity, because at that time, if you know about this, there are only like 2 or 3 schools that were offering petroleum economics as a master's program in Nigeria, University of Ibadan and University of Port Harcourt. Delta State University started offering it at some point, but it was not. Well, of course, I would say this, given that I went to Uniport, but they started offering it, but it was kind of like different, right? And then I know that I think University of Lagos offers it, but as a subset of economics.
Oh, okay. So this is like a more deeper.
Yeah. So but the way Uniport runs it, which I tended to like, was it was a blend from petroleum engineering and economics. So it wasn't left totally to. Yeah. Anyway, that's
You probably met probably were in the same class with Obimogo then, because he just finished from there as well.
Aha. So I know
Yeah.
people, of course, I know people who do, but no, we're not in
Oh,
the
okay.
same class. No, we're not in the same class, but we
You
we,
caught
we
up.
caught
Okay.
up. I discovered
Yeah.
him there too. And I said, my friend, what are you doing here?
That's how I know
You
about the
know?
course. When I saw it, I was like, okay, you're one of the set. But okay, so going through
Yes,
all of this,
yes. So
going through all of this story
how
now,
it is.
but you're not right now not in Nigeria. You are currently
No, I'm not.
in Canada. And I want to
Correct.
find out what that story has been and how all of this experience that you have, how it has helped you to transition into Canada and the Canadian story. Now, most of the people I've had interview with are American experience. So yours is not through school. Yours is I'll let you say what you did. So I don't want to put any words, but the good thing is you're going to be the aim of the podcast is try and get people to understand how this transition works and what people's experience are in settling down. So they have an idea. It's like, oh, okay, so if I'm going to move to Canada, this is what I need to know. So when did you decide to do it? What did you do? And where are you now? And then we'll get into the nitty gritty of settling down in Canada. So let me allow you to.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So of course, my first brush with living abroad or contemplating going abroad to live was 2008.
Okay.
That was my first brush. When I finished my master's program at Gbakon University, the UK government, Scottish government / UK government at that time had a program they called the postgraduate work permits, where essentially they would give you 2 years to settle back, try and get a job, and then you could transition from there to become resident.
I was in the UK then. I left in 2009, so I know
yes, good. So they had that program, and especially if you went to school in Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland was different.
So it was a program that was designed to attract people into Scotland, and so that was my first brush with it. At the time, 2008, I didn't think very much about it. Remember, I already had a job with the National Oil Company, so I knew about it. I had friends and classmates who were doing it, but I really didn't give it very much thought, to be honest with you. So, but at least I knew about it, right? So that was my first brush with it. The next time I will seriously contemplate this will be 7 years later, in 2015. Okay. So in 2015 was when I think Canada rebranded their Express Entry program. Yeah. So what we now know as Express Entry in Canada has always been, actually, but 2015 was a defining moment because now they revamped it, made it very streamlined, and people could get in. Well, so they changed the process of application. That's for sure. So they changed it. In fact, that was when they changed it, I think, into a points-based system.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it was very clearly defined what you needed to score on each category to make it through. And then of course there were some other changes. Provinces could select and make what you call recommendations to the federal government, because immigration is a federal issue in Canada. So provinces could nominate someone and recommend that person to the federal government system, and the federal government could award you the necessary funds to make you eligible.
Based on that recommendation, you get points for that.
Based on the nomination from the province. Yeah. So these were some of the things I think they introduced and revamped and streamlined in 2015. I tried in 2015 at the time. I tried, through a third party to do it, but unfortunately, it didn't work out quite well. Funny story though is that I actually got a nomination in 2017 to come and sell in Ontario, but I didn't take it, mostly because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking at it.
Someone nominate you?
So So remember, I started working with an agency. So they had my details, and even when my contract with them was over, they kept submitting my details for consideration.
And then you would get invited to apply.
you get invited to apply, right? So I got invited to apply. I didn't take advantage of it,
You were not
really, because I
expecting it.
wasn't
Yeah.
ready at the time. I was not expecting it, so I
Yeah.
wasn't
You
prepared
were
for
prepared for
it.
it.
I didn't know that they
Yeah.
were still, I didn't know that they were still, they had my file still open somewhere. So I then decided that, okay, you know what? I'm going to be very deliberate about this and make the application and stay focused on it and come to
Okay.
Canada. That's when I took it very seriously and then started making my applications. I did a lot of
Okay.
research,
What kind of
finding out
research?
which provinces were.
So I want people
Oh,
listening to find out that, hey, this is not something you wake up that you have to find an agent. A lot of people, there's nothing wrong with finding agents, but there's everything wrong with when you hand
yeah,
over every single bit of the process to an agent.
that's right.
What did you
That's
go?
right.
What what kind of research did you do for the sake of people that don't know how this works?
And they don't know. Okay, that's fine. Very happy
Yeah.
to oblige. Very happy to oblige. So, the research was around even understanding, okay, what is this system? How
Okay.
does it work?
Yeah.
So basics. How
Right.
does this work? Then what is the objective of the
Okay.
system?
Okay.
Because if you understand the objective of the system, you will then begin to appreciate why the certain requirements
Right.
are there. And then you will begin to also appreciate how to navigate those requirements if you don't exactly meet
Correct.
them.
Yeah.
So I give you an
Okay.
example. If you were working with an agent and the requirement is to say bring if there just a random
Right.
example here, the requirement is to say bring a recommendation
Okay.
letter from your
Right.
physician in a
Okay.
letterhead. Actually, that is a recommendation if you go and read
Right.
it up from the website, actually. But what the third-party agent may not tell you is that, well, if you don't want to have to, or you cannot get a letter-headed
Right.
recommendation, there are other ways you can address that
Okay.
requirement.
Okay.
So you may not have an agent that goes that extra mile to find out
Those
what
things
the
are.
alternative
Right.
way is.
So you
Yes,
find,
exactly. And you can only know
if you do
that,
research.
yes, you can only, if you do research and know that, okay, if I don't have this, then this is my
Right.
alternative. Yeah. So things like
Okay.
that. So a lot of research I did quite a bit of research in that area, understanding the
Right.
system, why the system is in place, understanding what different provinces were
Yeah.
offering, and what the
Yes, I have a
requirements were
question.
for
I
each
have
of
a
those
question regarding that because
provinces.
I don't know anything
Mhm.
about the Canadian process. I did study it in 2015 when I was deciding between Canada and the US. But the
Mhm.
provinces, I know, why do they have disparate requirements? Why don't they have the same requirement? And is it because yeah, I'll allow you to answer. So maybe you might answer my question when you answer. So let me just allow you.
When I answer. So they have different, of course, back to basics. Canada runs a federal
Okay.
system.
Yeah.
So the provinces are independent in some ways, but they've agreed to cooperate under a federal
Right.
umbrella.
How many provinces are there?
There are 13 provinces and
Okay.
territories. So there are three territories in the north, and then the rest are called provinces. So those three in the north, we call them territories. Then the other 10, we call them provinces.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so each of
yeah,
them then have their own kind of immigration rule system. Not I won't
that's
say
right.
I won't call it like immigration because immigration sounds nationalistic. More like entry
Immigration
rules.
Yeah, the entry requirements. Each of them has the entry
Okay.
requirements, but you'll find that the requirements, the type of requirements are similar,
Okay.
but the specifics of the requirement may differ.
Give an example.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Give an example.
So, for example, whichever province you look at, you have to have an English score. You have to demonstrate that you can speak English or French.
Okay.
Okay. It doesn't matter which province you are trying to go through. You have to demonstrate that language ability. But the level to which you have to develop it might differ from one province to another.
Because you have a French-speaking part in Canada, so they would
exactly.
French score.
So exactly. So generally across board, all the provinces will have some way of assessing your ability to
Right.
speak English. All of them will have a way of assessing your educational
Okay.
qualifications. All of them will have, yeah. So, but that's what, and then another way they differ is if you're going to be coming, each of them has different skill
Okay.
requirements. So remember that the whole idea of the express entry economic immigration
Right.
pathway is to help beef up skill
Yeah.
gap or work, close
Right.
skill gaps in certain areas. So Saskatchewan may say, oh, they want more IT
Right.
people, they want more people with skills in mechanics or
Right.
work or trades
Right.
people. So other province, Ontario, may say, oh no, I think we need more of those kind of. So again, that's one thing that differentiates one
Over the other.
province from
Okay.
another.
So the
Over the other, yes.
requirements, and
Yeah.
then you mentioned that it's a points-based system, and how
It is
do
a
you
points-based.
meet up the points? What are the requirements? I know you have one. I know one is age, one is education, and you mentioned English and then the
Yeah.
French.
Yeah. So there's age. You're right. There's age. There is language
Right.
requirements. There is your education, your level of
Right. Okay.
education, and then there's a fourth one, which is called
The experience, like
yes, work
experience.
experience. That's right, work experience. Very correct. That's it, work experience. So, and for each of these categories, there are certain kinds of documents that you are expected to
Right.
submit to back that requirement
Okay.
up. So let's say
Right.
experience. How do you demonstrate experience? Well, you have to bring recommendation letters as per their requirement, right? So that's how you demonstrate. How do you demonstrate your age? Well, you have to bring your birth certificate, right? And your data, yeah. How do you demonstrate English proficiency? Well, you have to write a
Right.
TOEFL or IELTS test, and have a score of a certain above a certain threshold.
Right.
Yeah. So that's
okay. That's pretty much
okay.
What it is. So what's the time frame for this? How long does it take to gather this? How long does it take for you to hear back? I know the times have changed. This is talking from your experience. I know right now, some people moved when nobody was looking at Canada. Now everybody wants to move.
Now everybody wants to move.
What are the typical steps? And what's the typical time?
And then I should also add that COVID came in and threw everything upside down.
Let's not forget our dear virus.
Let's not forget.
That decided to upend our lives.
Let's not forget COVID. COVID came and upended everything. So for me, really, I want to count it from when I made my submission.
Okay, yeah.
Right? When I made my submission, I'm not counting before that because then it depends on your own efforts, right? Depends on how quickly you are processing stuff. But the moment you, yes, how quickly you can process all of those stuff. But the moment you've put in your application, well, I don't know what the website says now, but it used to be advertised that you can get your residency in 6 months. That's what it used to be advertised.
That's like a pipe dream now.
Yeah, this was before all of this. Yeah, this was before all of these things came in. But remember, I made my application in February, and I had my letter, having my residency in December.
Oh wow, February of what year?
So this was the COVID period. So this was February of 2020. Yes.
Oh wow, and that was before.
Yeah.
So that was before COVID really, because everybody knew some noise about COVID, but
yeah. So I made that submission.
March.
COVID was December 2019. Yeah. That's why it's COVID. That's why it's COVID-19. Right. It was 2019 December. Then really heated up in the first quarter of 2020.
So by March 2020 was when we really knew what was going on.
That's when we knew what was going on. But I had made my submission around February.
Ah, okay.
So in the midst of all the shutdowns, closures, restrictions, my documents were being processed, and eventually I was going through the mail and the processes, and then it came out by
December
of 2020. Okay. I knew that I had my documents in hand. This was real. It was going down. It was happening.
Okay.
by December 2020, I knew for sure that it was
So
happening.
what was that? So once you get that, you have like a year to leave, I think. You usually, or do you have to then apply?
Yes.
You have to then
Yeah.
apply for the visa, or was it that your passport came with the visa then, or was it just like an approval letter?
No, so you get a, it comes in different stages, and you will forgive me if I
That's
can't
fine.
remember
That's
all of
fine.
them exactly, but yeah, but basically you get an email informing you that, oh, you've been
Okay.
successful in this, you have X number of
Okay.
months to land in Canada, or else you would have to
Restart all over again.
go back, restart or something. And at that time, I was very confused by that message, because this was at the time when everyone was locked down. Nobody was flying
That's
anywhere.
true.
So
Oh, what do you
what
mean I want to leave? Everyone,
what am I
there's a
supposed to
virus
do?
out there.
Nobody's moving. Yeah, nobody's moving. So you are telling me that if I can't move after 6 months,
Right.
this will happen. But then I then, decided not to worry much about it, because I mean, this was like a general
Right.
situation. So, but you get that
Okay.
email, then you have to send in your
Okay.
passports, right? Yeah, that's like a passport request. You send in the
Okay.
passports. They do whatever they do with their passports. They send it back to
Okay.
you. I think there's a document that comes back with that passport, and then once you have
Right.
that, you can travel.
Okay.
Really,
So,
you can travel, and even
yeah.
that travel for me at that time was another
Oh,
interesting
okay. So
story
what happened?
altogether, because like I said, this was lockdown. Nobody was moving anywhere really.
Ah,
So I sent my passport in. I got the document, right, which kind of like reiterated what I had just seen in the
yes.
email. But
You
I
can't
can't
travel.
travel. I can't get on an
Right.
airline.
Nobody was flying out.
And nobody was flying, right? You can't travel. So I again did some research, and I found out actually that if you arrive at the Canadian border from the
Right.
US, you're allowed
Mm-hmm.
through. So US was one of those countries that was exempt. So if you came into the
Ah.
US, you could arrive, you could
Oh, so
come
they didn't
in.
allow
So I was like,
flights from any other port of entry but the US. And even
yes,
the arrival
the
probably
US.
wouldn't
So
be by, was it by flight or you could drive or any port of entry?
no, by flight. So you could come in by flight, you could drive
Right.
across the
Okay.
border, whatever. But as long as you're coming
Right.
from the
Okay.
US, okay. What you couldn't do was you couldn't get on a flight from Lagos or Abuja
And
and fly into
right.
Canada
Right.
directly like that.
Or
You
from
had
Europe.
to be originating from the US.
Or from or from
Exactly.
Europe. Okay.
You couldn't do that. But because of the special relationship between Canada and
Right.
the US, you know, if you came in from Canada, if you came in
Yeah.
from the US, you would be allowed to land. And I actually had a US
Oh
visa.
wow.
Yeah, so I said,
Okay.
well, I just go to
Yeah.
the US and then spend a couple of time with
Yeah.
my friend, and
Walk across.
then fly walk across into Canada. And when I first proposed the idea to a friend of mine I was
Right.
talking this to, he was like, am I sure of what I'm saying? I said, well, this is what the research says. It's on their
Yeah.
website. I wrote it down. He said, okay, fine. Print it, have it in hand. In case anybody asks you at the
Right.
border or something, you'll say this is your reason for coming. What that can
They will
happen
say
is
no.
that you'll be turned back to
Yeah.
the US, and you go back to the US, sit down,
And
and
then
have a
go
good
back.
time.
Yeah.
Go back to where I'm coming. But I was pretty confident that that was going to
Okay.
work. And again, that underscores the value of doing that research, because if I didn't
Yes.
find out, and this is what you will obviously
No,
not
if
see,
you didn't do the research.
you need
Yeah.
to if you need to actually read up and find out about that and keep
Yeah.
tabs. And that was actually how I did it,
Okay.
right? And the moment I did that, it then became easier for my family to come, because now, under those situations, the only people that could land
Oh.
were people that had a permanent resident in the country already.
Ah, okay. So you went in and then what did you have to give them? Did you have to do anything special for them? For
No, not especially just the usual
okay.
documentation. Usually you have the landing, the documents you fill
Right.
upon landing. So once you have these documents you fill
Right.
upon landing, all I simply did was share it back to my
Okay.
family, and they now use it as a basis to get on a
So
plane
so
to
they
come.
were allowed to get on the plane because of that.
Yes,
Oh wow.
yes. They couldn't have gotten on a plane if I
Oh
hadn't given
wow.
them that. Yeah, they
Okay.
couldn't have gone. So it was a very Yeah, but times have
Yeah,
normalized. You will not
but
you most people don't need to go
but
through
this
that now.
story underpins something. You have to be able to be very proactive and also
Mm-hmm.
probably reactive sometimes to the situations of immigration. Because if you had just
Yeah.
assumed, oh no, they're not letting everybody fly, but you found the rules, and that's
Mm.
one thing I like about the West.
Yeah.
The rules are the rules, and
The
you would
rules are the
follow
rules,
them.
yeah.
And well,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually very very interesting to know. Which leads to the next one. The next question
Yeah.
is around the issue of, okay, now we've landed in Canada. You don't know anybody in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Yeah,
You
that's right.
probably have some friends that live
Mm-hmm.
around. They've told you,
Yep.
they've told you,
Yep.
oh, this is how Canada is. Oh, there's no work, there's no
Mm.
this, we're hustling, or we have to work in there's nothing wrong with working in a store or in a factory,
Mm.
but so how was that transition for you? Before you answer that, what was the time lag between when you landed and when your family came? What was the time?
The time lag, 1 week.
Okay, so there was not a lot of time. So there was a lot of
You know,
there was a lot of pressure on you.
and your international audience will forgive me. Yeah, it was a sharp,
Oh
sharp
yeah, it
movement.
was very quick and fast, very
Very
quick.
quick,
Yeah.
very quick. In fact,
Um. So
very quick.
how did you settle in? What was that? What were the steps that you had to do? So now you've made that leap. You made that
Mm-hmm.
leap. You've landed. Like, all right, fine. Now I'm here. I'm in Canada. Yes, everything is
Mm.
working. We've
Yep.
got light. We've got internet. I'm not worried about infrastructure. But now you have
Mm-hmm.
to figure out the system. So what were those steps that you had to
Figure out.
take? Because a lot of people don't know. And I want to dispel this
Don't know.
notion
Yeah.
that everything is just fantastic. You just land and then there's money
Mm-hmm.
being sprayed around the street. I don't have to do anything. And
Yeah.
this is what frustrates people. People don't understand that there's a system.
Mm-hmm. True.
Now I understand the US
It's a
system
system. That's
very well. I understand transition, but what is that permanent residency system? Like, I brought my family in, which
mm.
is most stories of Nigerians and every other people. How did you integrate?
Mm. Very good question. Very good question. I'll summarily say I'll summarily say yes. I think I was fortunate in a number of
Okay.
respects, but I think it also comes down to good
Yes.
planning and again research.
Yes.
Forgive me
No,
when I
no.
say
So
research several
I'm
times. I
sure
mean,
everybody has said research
whether
so
it's
many times now. Now we're going to move on to planning. So there's research, which
planning,
is
this
not
resulted is planning,
active. Planning is research. I can read a
planning,
book and have all this plan
mm-hmm.
research in my head, but
Knowledge in your head,
now the
research in your
rubber
head,
has hit the road. Now you have to execute.
planning. What do
So
you
how
do?
did you do it?
Now you have to execute. How did I execute? Okay, so my execution actually started at least 6 months before I actually came to Canada.
Aha! Now we see
Yeah.
why it was
So
okay. Go ahead. This is interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So what happened was while trying to make the move, the transition, of course I had said trying to follow certain people on
Okay.
social that would give good
Okay.
advice that tell you about settling in and what
Right.
have you. And of course, one of the things that was uppermost in my mind was, okay, what kind of job was I going to
Yes.
get?
Yes.
Right. So that was
First
that
thing.
was number one thing ringing in my mind. First thing, what kind of job am I
Yep.
going to get, and how will I go about getting this job? So I was very focused on following talks,
Okay.
YouTube videos of people that were involved in that kind of thing. Like programs like what we're
Right.
doing right
Okay.
now, of people that were doing that
Okay.
kind of thing. I remember I had my first sit down with a what you call a career, what they
Career
call
coach.
they call it
Yeah.
career coach. Somebody, yeah. So I had my first sit down with a career
Okay.
coach. Funnily, I said, okay, look, here is my background. Help me review. How can what industry can I
Right.
fit in given my background? How can I tailor myself to to be attractive to employers and
Right.
what have you? What are the things I should do? Websites,
Right.
resources, events, And I went through that with the person, and the person said, okay, this is what you should
Okay.
do. You have some good experience. These are the industries you should
Okay.
target. I think if you shaped your CV up this way, then of course, I did skill mapping
Okay.
and skill gap analysis, try to say, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to go, this is what I need to do to fill that gap.
Right.
So there was that. So I did all of that. Another thing I did was I did not, the moment I knew, because as the process is going
Right.
through, you know, the reality is you don't just suddenly know
Right.
that going to be parent business. The kind of feedback you'll be getting would be, you should be getting a sense of your likelihood
Okay.
of being successful.
Right.
So the moment I knew that the likelihood of being successful was increasing,
Right.
I actually started to apply for jobs.
Oh, while you were in Nigeria.
From before I even, yes, right out of even before I had gotten on the plane.
Okay.
I actually started applying for jobs.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had started getting my rejections ahead of landing.
Which is why I said you have to be reactive and you have to be proactive. Reactive in the sense that
I started
go ahead.
I started getting my rejections before day zero.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very good way of doing this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't here and desperate and getting rejections,
right,
and then
you have
being
that panic,
immobilized.
and you know
You have
your
that
bond
panic.
rate is increasing, the bills are being paid, you know.
Exactly. Bills are piling, and then that's what shifts people into trying to get something to hold, just to get by. And then a friend had actually told me to one of the things that motivated me to do this was because a friend who was already here had told me that the moment, well, this is, of course, it's true, but again, situations differ from person to person. But he explained to me that the moment you hold on to something that is okay, let me just get by with this. Let me get by with this. Find out that the cycle of that job keeps you really from pursuing higher things.
That's true.
Because the reality is those jobs can be very exhausting, very tiring. You are just thinking about the next day. You're not thinking about 10 days later or 100 days later. You're thinking about the next day.
Making the bills, making bank.
Yes. At the moment you get into that cycle, it becomes challenging to break.
Right.
So try not to get into that cycle.
Very good advice. And this was someone that was here.
I told you. This was someone that was here already. That told me this. So I said, okay, look, I better try not to get in this cycle. Let me feel all my feelings before I take off. So yeah, that was it. But the fortunate part of it is because I had been applying, maybe you'll say the game of numbers.
Right.
The job I currently have, I actually applied for it on my second day after landing in Canada.
Oh wow. So you had
So while
you had honed your skills of applying for these jobs. You knew what was working.
Yes.
You knew what was not working. You optimized.
I knew what was not working.
Pretty much just kept on optimizing until
optimizing all the way
until this.
Exactly. So in fact, I remember the day I applied for this job, I was in quarantine in the hotel room because then they were quarantined.
Yes,
now people may not remember about the quarantine.
Yes.
So it was really, at that time you would have to quarantine in one of the major entry ports. So if you came in through Calgary, Ontario or Vancouver, you quarantine in that location for 3 years at your cost.
Oh wow. Was that your own cost?
Yeah. At your own cost, yes. You'll be quarantined in one of those hotels.
It was really at the height of it. I mean, people didn't understand.
Yeah. You'll be quarantined, and then after those 3 days, you can get on a plane to go to wherever you are going. And when you get to wherever you're going, you have to now be quarantined again in that location. And different provinces had their requirement. Again, yes. So coming to Saskatchewan, I was quarantined 3 days in Ontario, and then quarantined another 10 days in Saskatchewan. So I was quarantined in total for half a month before I could see light of day. You know.
Wow.
Anyway, so I made the application.
And then you were doing your applications then.
That's correct. In fact, in those 10 days of quarantine while I was in Saskatoon, I think I attended maybe 4 interviews.
Oh wow! In quarantine.
Yeah, because you have to remember that I had a backlog of applications I had been making.
Yes, so you had.
Yeah, I had a backlog of applications that I had been making. So, that's what it happened. And then, of course, when I really landed on the
Right.
ground, I didn't just, you know, I went through. So there's this thing they call Open Door Society here. I know some people don't really think much of
Okay.
it, but they're actually funded organizations funded by the
Okay.
government to help newcomers or people that are just landing
Okay.
to integrate. So
Okay.
all kinds of services they can render. They can help you with language training, can help you
Oh,
with
okay.
looking at your CV. They can help you with um, giving you opportunities for jobs, they show you
Yeah.
where to get jobs. They can help you with filling your forms because when you land, there are
Several
several
forms.
forms.
Okay.
If you don't have someone to guide you, there's several forms. It's very easy to miss one.
Wow.
So they can give you that guidance and what have
Okay.
you. So I took advantage of that. And then they also explained to me the school system for kids.
Right.
They explained to me. They were very helpful all
Okay.
around. They explained. They gave me stuff for my
Okay.
kids.
So you'd advise
Toys, books.
people to actually look out for what are they called again?
Yes, look out for those. They are called open door
Open
societies.
doors.
So different provinces,
Okay.
yes, different provinces have their own versions.
Okay.
But in Saskatchewan, they call it Saskatchewan Open Door Society,
Okay.
SODS.
So that was
Yeah, they can even help you with interview preparation and what have
okay.
you.
So how did you?
Mhm.
So you did all these applications. Did you just go on a particular website? Was it Indeed? Was it LinkedIn? Where were you finding these jobs?
Most of them were on Indeed.
Okay. So Indeed
Most were on Indeed, actually.
dot
Yeah.
ca.
But I also found out that, yes, but I also found out that if you put in, say, um, cyber security job in
Right.
Saskatoon, just in
Right.
Google, of course, being a very large search engine, will just
Pull.
pull together all kinds of from wherever and just present it to you right there.
Okay.
So
So that was you.
so
What
yeah.
about your family? So how did your wife and your kids? What was integration like for them? So because
So for them, yeah, good. That's a great question. So let me start with my
yeah,
wife. So my wife, for her, it was, because being a lady, there are several things she
right.
juggles, right? She's juggling the home front for the
Yes.
kids, and she's juggling her own what do you call it? Her own career
Right.
and progress and what have you. So for her, one of the first things we did was for her to start a program, a
Oh,
school
okay.
program.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And we thought it was the right thing to do to help her align her skills with the requirements of what's
Okay.
here. Now, she's not in
Right.
tech, right? She's her. So she needed to do something that would enable her to
Okay.
integrate into the
Okay.
workplace. So she took on a program, finished that in in very good flying colors,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. What
You know,
field? What field?
actually,
What field is she in?
so she's the field of addiction. So she took a course in addictions.
Oh, so it's public health kind of thing.
No, but so it's a subset of public
Okay.
health. The way you say public health will encompass
It's a
several other
huge.
things.
It's a huge
So this
umbrella.
is this yes, that's a huge area. So but addictions is just one
Oh,
area,
okay.
and I should say the
Yeah.
underbelly of Canada is that there is actually a societal problem with addiction.
That's not a new thing. Don't worry.
Substance abuse.
We are the leader.
Yeah.
I live in California. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you
yes,
know,
exactly.
California's
Exactly.
population
So
is your population. So
yeah,
we
I mean,
know.
so there you
I
go. So
know
there you go.
what you're talking about. The
Yeah. So it's a big area, very heavily funded,
oh, okay.
very heavily so yes, very heavily supported. So yeah, she's studying in that
Okay.
area, and she's really had no trouble getting jobs to do or work
Right.
to do
Okay.
in that
Okay.
area.
Okay.
So that was for
The
her.
kids. Yeah.
Kids, of course. I mean, kids being
Yeah.
kids. I've got them into school. I tried to understand their school system. Asked a lot
Right.
of questions. The kids did fine. They integrated really, really
Right. Okay.
quickly.
Okay.
They integrated really
So
quickly.
now that is in how did you find accommodation? So now you're not by yourself. You have a family. What are those things
Mm.
you watch out for? because if you're by yourself, if you wouldn't mind, you can share an apartment with someone, you can work out for yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
But
That's
with
right.
your family
That's
now,
right.
did you pick an area that is family oriented? Did you
Mm,
pick an
mm,
area
mm.
that had better schools? Because it works differently here in the US. You're zoned, if you're in the public school system, you're zoned to a place that is closest to your zip code. So, because
That's right.
it's the property taxes that fund the public school. So
hmm
how did you
Yeah.
make that decision?
Okay, so first it is again, this is why I say I was fortunate to have really good
Okay.
friends and a really good support
Okay.
system.
Okay.
Once again, before I left
Right.
Nigeria, I had a friend who was already here and helped me secure
Oh, okay.
accommodation.
Okay. So he would use his experience
So
to do
he
that.
was, yes. So he used his experience to help me secure that accommodation. And because he had secured the accommodation in a place that was, you know, we shared kind of like the same ideas and values with respect to where kids should go to
Right.
school. I didn't mind
Right. Okay.
that the school where my kids
Two
went to
would be something similar.
was in that same area. So that was, yes, that was very fine. And then also, again, I was fortunate because when I got my job and I moved, my colleagues also helped me on the lookout. They actually helped me get a place,
Okay.
right? I was really fortunate in that regard.
Right.
In that regard, I don't know how I ended up with those kind of
Right.
colleagues. But generally, if you are coming, assuming you don't know anyone, assume you don't know anyone. And my advice would be,
Yeah.
and this advice be a bit hard on the pocket, I realize, is to give yourself some time. If you can get an Airbnb, if you
Okay.
can get a friend that it will be good for you to get a good length of time to stay. For me,
Okay.
I would say the fact that I was forced to quarantine kind of like already helped me with that situation.
Okay.
And let me explain. Because I was forced
Yeah.
to quarantine, I couldn't move anywhere,
Yeah.
anyways. Okay. So it forced me to be in one
Yes.
place for a significant length
Right.
of time while my friends were trying to perfect arrangements for
Right.
accommodation.
Okay.
Okay. But now it's different because there's nothing constraining you to be in a
Yeah.
place. You want to minimize how long you
Yeah.
stay in temporary accommodation. And that can be a problem because then you may be in a rush. I've seen people try and rush and then they get an accommodation that is not exactly,
Okay.
fit for
Okay.
purpose, right? And that doesn't help. That doesn't help the situation. So, but I would say
Okay.
others have been lucky. You can actually they've arranged for accommodation
Okay.
remotely. They did a video, what do
Video
you call it now?
tour.
A video
Okay.
inspection, a video tour, which has its advantages, but it has its downsides as well.
Okay.
I mean, if there's a funny smell in the apartment, the video tour is
It's
not
not
going
going
to
to
tell
tell
you
you.
that.
That's
Right?
true. I never
It's not
thought
going to
about.
tell you. Yeah, if there's a broken pipe behind the
Yeah.
wall,
You're not going to see it.
a video tour is not going to tell you. Especially if the guy knows
Yeah.
about it and just doesn't take the camera
Yeah.
that way. You're not going to see that.
Right.
Right? A video tour gives you zero idea about the
Right.
neighborhood.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe a Google search can help you with some
Google search
extended
won't help either because you actually have
search.
to see it. Unless
You actually have to
unless it's a brand
see
new place,
the
which
neighborhood,
is
right?
very rare.
Unless it's a brand new place, So those are the disadvantages of doing that. But other than that, those are the options. Those are the options that will be open to one in trying to secure accommodation.
Okay. So,
And it is getting increasingly challenging, I would say.
yes, I
With
was
the
gonna
housing
ask that.
issues.
How is it
Mm.
now? Because I know that there was a recent reduction in the issuance of international student visas
Yes.
because of
Yeah.
the increase in the cost of rent because of the reduced quantity of houses
Mm.
out for rent, and people are taking
Mhm.
advantage. I've heard stories
Yeah.
where they give you
Yeah.
the garage, they give you a small room. I don't know what promises those are, but you hear the stories.
Most likely some in very big provinces, not only big cities.
Right. So yeah, I'm hearing all sorts of very funny stories
All sorts of things.
about
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how bad it can how bad
Mm-hmm.
it can get. Is it
Mm,
is
mm, mm.
so in this kind of current situation now, what would you advise for someone that wants to make the move? I just got my my passport back and I'm moving in next week.
Mm,
What would you advise them to
yeah.
watch out for?
So my advice, in addition to all I've
Yeah,
said about it, of course, like I said, if you are getting your passport, by the time that you are getting the emails back and forth, you know what your likelihood
right.
is. So don't wait until you have the passport in hand to begin to do some of these things, like looking for
Okay.
a job, talking to a career coach, um, reviewing your skill maps, and don't wait. Start that
Okay.
early. Then for accommodations, it's because of how many people have come
Right.
abroad now. It's very unlikely that there is although there will be that one person
Mm.
I know, but it's very unlikely that you would be coming to Canada and not know
Anybody.
anybody at all where you are going. Yeah, give me the number of persons that have come.
Yeah.
So I would say months before, while you are in planning,
Right.
I try and reach out. I know sometimes people don't like to reveal their plans.
Yes, I was gonna say because
They just want to keep things under wraps. Yeah, but this can end up being your
undoing,
undoing.
yes, especially in a
It
place
can, it
like
can
the
end up being
West.
your yes, it can end up being your undoing, because let me tell you, imagine I was keeping it under wraps from that close friend that I was telling about.
Right.
And this again, let me not the guy is a close friend, yes, but remember that before I started making this move, it's not like I was always talking to him every week.
Yes, but at least you kept in touch with
I
him.
started talking to him. I kept in touch with
Yeah.
him, yes. I kept the relationship warm, but it's not like, oh, this some guy I just call up every week and just
Yeah.
banter. No. When I knew that I was going to be coming, I realized that, oh, he's here. I
Reach
reached
out
out
to
to him and
him.
said, look, yeah, this is what I'm planning to do. I'm coming
Yeah.
over, show me the way. What's it
Right.
like? So you need someone to do that for
Right.
you, right? You need someone to give you proper advice and
Right.
guidance. Even if the person is not going to be accommodating you directly in
Yeah,
his
but at
house,
least you have an
you
idea
need still
of how
someone.
things are here.
Yeah, I give you an example. A certain lady came. We accommodated
Right.
her, and she thought, oh, she would only need temporary accommodation for 3
Right.
days, after which she should be able to rent a
Right.
place and move on with her life. And I said, hello, no, nobody knows you here. Why would they rent a house to you? You don't have a job. You don't have an
Right.
ID. You don't. Your bank account is just 2 days old.
No one's gonna rent you anything.
How would you? Nobody's gonna do anything for him, right? So she said, oh no, but the person she spoke to told her that the place she's going to is a small town. She should get a house in no time. I said, okay, where does the person live? It turns out the person lives in a province on the other side of the
Oh
country.
wow. So what?
So the person doesn't even live in the province where she
Yeah,
was coming to. So the information the person had was the information that she herself could have gotten if she had just Googled.
And yeah.
So I'm like, I said, lady, that person you are talking about lives in a province on the other side of the country. On this side of the country, this is the place. It turned out that we had to accommodate her for, I think, maybe 2 weeks
before she could find her feet.
And yeah, because she needed to have the basic documentation, right? If you are a student, you need to have some ID. You need to go and document. You need to have a bank account. And then you need someone to. Because in this system, everything is happened by references,
right?
Which was a bit of a cultural shock for me. I mean, there are certain things that just happen. We say, "Oh, we need a reference."
Like, what does that mean?
You did. Does that mean that I have the money? It's in my account. I need to rent a house. This is my ID.
We need it.
Yes, I know. We also get references, from back home. But the way it's taken here, it's a real big deal.
Yeah, because
it's a real big deal.
They're trying to create a chain of connections to make sure that
connections. Yeah, and even though we do it, I mean, I lived in Port Harcourt. I lived in Warri, in Nigeria, and in all the houses I lived in, I didn't have to get references to rent those houses.
It's a new system. You have to get references.
I didn't have to get references to do it. The closest was maybe I would rent from a landlord that I knew.
Right.
But which is almost like a reference. I mean, that's like a
It
self-reference.
is
But,
a reference.
but yeah, but other than that, no.
Okay, so
So those are things I would say to look out for.
look
Yeah.
out for. Almost.
Mhm.
So the next question I had is regarding your job. I'm very curious about the job because you work in
Yeah.
the Ministry of Forestry. I think I don't know if I remember.
So yeah, when I read that, I smiled. Actually, I work in the Ministry of Energy and Resources as a senior forestry economist.
Senior forestry. What does a senior forestry economist do?
Oh,
I've
a
never
very
heard
good
about. I mean, I
question.
can understand
So,
the Ministry of Forestry Economics. That's like a almost like a
yeah,
niche, almost like a niche job.
yeah, it's quite niche. It's actually niche. It's actually a niche job. Um, so as far as the organization is concerned, here you've got the Ministry of Energy
Right.
and Resources. So Saskatchewan is a very resource-rich province. They've got
Okay.
forests, lumber, they've got oil, they've got minerals,
Oh, okay.
they've got gas, helium, they've got lithium, they've got, so they've got a span of things, and all of these are managed under the Ministry of Energy and Resources. Now, forestry
So it's a big ministry then.
is, yes, so forestry is under the Ministry of Energy and Resources.
Oh, because they have a lot of.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's
true. We get our lumbers
right. Mm-hmm.
from Canada for building here in America.
In fact, exactly. In fact, 27% of 27% of U.S. Canada. Oh, sorry, 27% of U.S. lumber consumption
Yes.
is imported from Canada.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I remember this
And
when we were trying to buy a house, and there was an increase in the price of lumber because people were building more, or was it not people were building less? I can't
yeah,
remember the economics that was going on, but yes, true.
yeah. There was having a lot of demand
No
and pressure on it,
demand.
so the prices went up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, the U.S. is a big market for Canadian lumber because I think
Yes.
something like 80% of the lumber produced in Canada is actually exported. Yeah.
Yes.
So even though that much is exported, you still find that it's still less than a third of what the U.S. consumes. So the U.S. is a huge market.
Yes, it is. I mean,
and Canada is, yes, it's a huge market. So my promise, and getting a bit technical here, my
that's fine.
promise actually supplies like 2% of that that 27%.
Oh wow,
It's not
no,
very
that's a
large.
huge 2% of 27 is huge if you consider the amount.
Yeah, and yeah. So it supplies 2% of that. And my job, as far as the promise is
Right.
concerned, is to take charge of that industry data, manage
Okay.
it, all the activities,
Okay.
the market signals in that sector,
Okay.
and help shape government response and policies
That's a huge
to
undertaking.
shifting market trends. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Oh wow.
So it involves, believe it or not, a lot of data lifting.
Okay.
Because I have to talk to a lot of government agencies.
Okay.
So I'm talking to the federal government. I'm talking to industry players. I'm talking to colleagues in other departments. I regularly have meetings with people from the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Environment. Sorry, Ministry of Parks. So there's a lot of stakeholder engagement that happens all around.
How much lumber is in Canada?
Job.
You guys have a lot of lumber then.
Oh, I forget that statistic down, but I think globally, something like 10% of the world's forests are in Canada.
What? 10%?
Yep.
That's and most of those places are uninhabited?
Well, some of them are, like where I am currently. Well, of course, so Canada is, of course, 90% of the Canadian population lives within 100 kilometers of the U.S. border.
Yes.
Right. So the rest of Canada is sparsely populated.
Right.
And the forests that make up the boreal forests, really, that serves as the natural stock for all of this lumber, is more to the northern part. So if you look at any province within Canada, the forests tend to be in the northern part, of those provinces. So in Saskatchewan, it's the same thing. Forests are north, southerly, if you're coming more southerly, then you are moving into agricultural resources. So that's where you now begin to have farmlands
Right.
and what have you. Yeah. So, but I think the bulk
Okay.
of the
And
forests will be
your oil
north of those.
export of what's that oil exports that you guys have?
We call it Western Canadian Select, WCS.
No, not oil. I'm talking about your
Mm.
most prized possession.
Canola oil.
No. Um
Okay.
for pancakes.
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Yes. I was surprised to find out that you guys actually have places that control the price point of maple syrup. I was like, it's maple syrup, please. It's just maple syrup. Okay, so last question. Well, second to the last question. You have a diverse skill set, you know, like I put it in the questions, like you are like a Swiss Army knife. You can cut and dice in different directions. What are you aiming for the future? Because you've mentioned how your aspiration took you from electrical engineering, how you wanted to fit into you know, petrochemical, and then you went chemical. Now you are in this place. It's looking like you might end up being a policymaker. You might just say, you know what? I've enjoyed writing all these tools and software and analysis. I think I want to be the guy that just gives the governor insights into what to do, and I'll leave it. So, what are your specific aspirations? I mean, if you are okay sharing.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Well, yeah. So I've sometimes I look at my background and I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing to, because I once described my background as being really checkered. It starts off in engineering, then switches into software,
Right.
then switches back into petroleum engineering, and then goes. So it's kind of like, But what actually I'm looking ultimately at is, at the end of the day, I think I'm looking more towards actually using data analysis, data analytics for the purposes of policy guidance. Actually, so you actually nailed it. Yeah. That's so, because if you look at what I've done all along is to always try to look to the data to shape what kind of decision making. Yeah. My last role within the national company, before transiting here, was really very data intensive as well. So use data to shape business strategy or corporate strategy decisions. So should we invest? Should we not invest? If we invest, how much should we pay? Or how much equity should we give up? Those kind of questions. That occupy the mind of an executive.
Did you do an MBA?
No, I have not done an MBA. And right now, I'm almost very embarrassed to consider doing an MBA.
Because what you just said now is an MBA question.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think, like, you can have an MBA in his Swiss Army knives of certifications that he has.
No. I don't. But
that's a good one.
It's almost embarrassing to consider that one might want to go and do that.
But I understand how you mean with data analytics guide policy.
Yeah, that's right. So I that's really what I'm aiming to do, or what I'm really looking to do. Because sometimes I think that that is lacking, especially in back home from where we're coming. Sometimes we don't rigorously apply data to our policy decisions, and I think it's a gap.
There's a gap.
Yeah, I think it's a gap.
Okay. Last question. So wrapping up. Can you leave the listeners with an advice or a message, especially those trying to carve out a similar path to yours? Because I wish them well if they want to do all the degree programs that you did. But yeah, just an advice for the little guy or the aspiring big guy.
I think it would be good to have a focus. That's one. Please have focus. You must have your why. You have to understand your why very well. and then have the focus, and then plan. I think I think sometimes we get carried away with the prospect of the end,
Okay.
and we don't realize how much work it takes to get to that end.
That's true. Yep.
So when the work then comes, people are taken aback, or they are shocked, or they're surprised, and they're like, I didn't expect that this is what it would be like, right? So what I would just say is have your why and keep
Right.
working on yourself and being
Okay.
dynamic. Don't get stuck in a certain pathway. Part of the things I've been fortunate to achieve really happened because I was taking dynamic decisions
Right.
over time.
You were adjusting.
I think
You kept on
yes,
adjusting.
I was adjusting. I kept on adjusting. I didn't insist that this is the path I was going to follow.
Right.
That's why I ended up with all of these things. I just kept on adjusting.
Okay.
I could have said, oh, forestry, no, that's not something I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But when I looked at it, I discovered, oh, this has a lot of similarities with what I've done
Right.
before. It has data in there. It has natural resources.
Yeah.
It's within an energy context. So, why not? And there you go. So I think also being open to opportunities.
Okay.
Or not closing your mind off for opportunities.
Okay.
Also something. Yeah.
Okay.
That I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It has been very interesting catching up. I'm very happy that we got to do this and that you reached out. Because I found you on LinkedIn. I go,
yeah,
is that Kaase that I've been looking for like 20 years? Because I've been looking for you. I have done every single form of LinkedIn searches to find you.
seriously?
I'm serious. That was just, you would notice immediately that I found, because I think I've been fairly connected to Chinan for a long time. So I was looking through.
No, but I've been connected to Chinan for so long.
But I couldn't spell your name. Remember the first question I asked you?
Oh, that's the problem.
The first question I asked you was, where are you from? I obviously did not know the surname, so there was no way I was going to know the surname. And I remember what you look like, but the name, I spelled every single time with a C. I spelled it Casey, was how I spelled your name on LinkedIn, to tell you that I've really, really done this for the longest time, for at least a decade. I was like,
you will fail.
where is this guy?
You will fail.
Because I remember clearly that, I was saying when we were in Mina, you and Chinan would sit down and talk about control systems. I think you guys were taking the 200 level courses together then. You guys were taking generic engineering class, and I think you were in 300 level then, and I was in 100 level.
Yeah.
And I would come into the room and you guys are talking about control systems. I was like, what are these people talking about? Because I would come to Austin's place. Austin's place was just adjacent to your place, and I'd walk in and I would say hello.
Yeah.
So Chinan, I knew. Chinan, I followed him for at least a decade. I was like, but where is this guy? I was like, his name was Kaase. That's all. Is it CASY? CASEY? I had no idea it was with a K. And then when I saw it, I was like, there he is. That's why I immediately added you. Well, thank you for doing this. It was nice sharing this.
Thank you.
I hope you had fun as much as I did.
No, I did.
Very much.
It's not every time I get to talk. It's not every time I get to talk about myself like this. So.
That's why I like the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah.